Holy smokes, man. Danielle Smith has gone completely rogue. She is going the opposite route than what all other premiers are doing. Every premier out there is complying with Justin Trudeau's idea. Or I guess it's even Doug Ford's idea of hitting back, playing tough guy with America twice as hard. If America's going to put 25% tariffs on Canada, Canada's going to cut off completely oil and gas supply to America, which is 60% of their oil and gas supply overall, which would absolutely hurt America and then piss them off even more. And there's something that pretty much everybody with common sense can agree with right now. Nobody wants a trade war. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage y'all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. Of course, we're going to be taking a look at Danielle Smith going absolutely rogue and saying, I'm not complying with any of that stuff. Alberta has a good deal with America for oil and gas, and we're going to keep doing that. And there's actually a possibility that if the tariffs do come on Canada, maybe Alberta is exempt from that. So it's kind of funny, but also very interesting what's happening. So we're going to be taking a look at that along with some recent remarks that Justin Trudeau has made and Pierre Poilievre's stance on Danielle Smith going essentially rogue. Does he have her back? Does he not have her back? You're going to have to wait to find out. But let's kick things off here with this video from yesterday's meet and greet from the premiers where Doug Ford had a baseball cap that said Canada is not for sale. Kind of funny.
Threats to turn Canada into the 51st state with a move some are now hanging their hats on. Here's CTV's John Venevelli-Rao.
Call it the battle of the ball caps. In one corner, the lid Trump made famous. And in the other, a new Canadian contender proudly promoted atop Premier Doug Ford's head.
This is about everyday Canadians standing up for their country.
The message, simple, bold, and embroidered, created by an Ottawa-based branding company that's seen a sudden crush of online orders after Ford donned a cap himself.
A real thrill, very proud to be Canadian, very proud to be an Ontarian.
The guy behind the company, Liam Mooney, used to be a political fundraiser.
I would consider it a privilege to be taken over by the United States of America.
He and his partner were repulsed by comments made by a Fox News host to Premier Ford last week and thought this response would resonate with fellow Canadians.
We heard the way that Jesse Waters was talking about Canada, this idea that it would be a privilege to be an American. Well, I've got news for those folks. It's a privilege to be Canadian, and it's an amazing privilege.
Do you see lots of Canadians wearing hats like that?
I mean, maybe one day. It depends how crazy this gets.
They've got a second hat for sale with patriotic words from the anthem. And in keeping with being Canadian, the hats are available in English and French. Could this hat catch on, do you think?
I don't think it's gonna be, no. Like the Make America Great Again was just too good and too catchy.
Would you wear a hat like that?
I would wear a badge, a hat, whatever, but in my heart it's inscribed. I'm a Canadian, I respect other countries, but we are not for sale.
Notably, the hats are currently manufactured in Asia, but Mooney hopes eventually they'll be 100% Canadian made. Ford saying it's an example.
The hats are made in Asia. You can't make this up. In one day, they're going to be Canadian made. He could have gone to a Canadian embroidery place and had that done. He could have easily called up a Canadian company to have that done. But instead, somebody thought it was a good idea to mass produce them over in China and say Canada's not for sale. It's just funny. You can't make that up. Look, I agree. Canada shouldn't be for sale. And I've kind of flirted with that idea in the past on this YouTube channel that, you know, maybe it's not the worst thing. Maybe we just hear out what they have, planned for Canada. As long as Canada keep its sovereignty, that's what I would like. I want Canada to stay its own country. But if we're talking about an economic union, kind of like what the European Union has, and we do that here in America, the American Union, that doesn't mean that Canada is being sold at all. That's just like economic unions. And I think that that's something that people are way more interested in, which again brings me back to Trump's anchoring strategy that he's done his entire political career and his entire business career. On the ridiculousness scale, he throws out a 10, and then we all end up settling for a 2 or 3, and we feel like we won and we escaped a 10 when that was actually the plan all along. So let me know down in the comments what you feel about this. Do you agree that Canada's not for sale? Do you agree that Canada should keep its sovereignty? Let me hear your guys' thoughts. And then moving on here to something that Justin Trudeau said just yesterday. Coming out of this highly productive meeting, we have shared a sense of purpose and a sense of understanding and commitment when it comes to standing up against the U.S. tariffs.
Coming out of this highly productive meeting, we have a shared sense of purpose, a shared sense of understanding, and a commitment to stand together on a united path forward. Because there's no sugarcoating it. The incoming administration's proposed tariffs against Canada would harm Americans. They would put American jobs at risk. They would put our collective security at risk. They would raise costs at a time when people simply deserve a break. And perhaps most crucially, they're not necessary. Our trading relationship is the envy of the world, and the better path forward is to make it stronger.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that this guy is still trying to represent Canada to any capacity. He's even talking about how good the ceasefire is that Trump put forward in the Middle East. Let's take a look here at what his comments were about that.
Again, I just want to say a few words about the ceasefire agreement that was just reached between Israel and Hamas. It means hostages that have been held captive since Hamas's abhorrent, unconscionable attack on October 7th, 2023, 15 terrible, grueling months ago, can finally be reunited with their families, and that includes, tragically, the remains of a Canadian. It means we can see the light at the end of the tunnel to hopefully put an end to this horrific war that has taken the lives of far too many innocents. Canada stands ready to do whatever it can to ensure the success of this agreement. But more than that, this ceasefire gives us hope. Hope that we can now focus our attention on a true, lasting political solution to this conflict, a two-state solution with Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in safety, security, and dignity. And hope that here in Canada, we can turn down the temperature, truly listen to one another, and ultimately rebuild the relationships between various communities which have been deeply damaged since October 2023. For Palestinian, Israeli, Lebanese, Jewish, and Arab Canadians, I know this war has been deeply hurtful, and I hope that today's news brings some solace, some relief.
This was only possible because Trump is about to be president in the next couple of days officially, and everyone is absolutely terrified, rightfully so. I mean, would you like to be turned to glass, or would you like to exist while America dominates Earth? Those were kind of the options, and they chose to exist while America dominates Earth. So that's nice that there's finally peace in the Middle East, and that took way too long, but hey, good job, Trump, for actually doing what needs to be done. And now we got to take a look here at Danielle Smith and her going rogue and what this means for Canada, what this means for premiers. And then afterwards, immediately, we're going to take a look at Pierre Poilievre's comments about the fact. Here we go.
This press conference was planned to be premiers only. But after a day-long meeting, they decided to share the podium with the Prime Minister.
There's never been a time that's more important for Canadians to be united.
Mostly united, perhaps not all.
I will point out that Danielle did join us for the conversation and contributed significantly.
Alberta's Danielle Smith joined virtually from Panama. A few days ago, she met Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, a trip she made without telling the federal government or other premiers.
We didn't get a heads up, no. I'm interested in learning more.
Smith refused to sign Wednesday's joint statement among the federal and provincial governments.
There will always be robust discussions around this table. Everyone has a job that is defending the interests of their own constituents, their own industries.
Smith posted her explanation on social media, criticizing Ottawa for continuing to float the idea of cutting off energy supply to the U.S. and imposing export tariffs.
That's her choice. That is her choice. But I have a little different theory. I have a different theory that protect your jurisdiction, but country comes first. Canada's a priority.
The joint statement by First Ministers makes no mention of using oil and gas to counter the U.S. president-elect's threats.
I see energy as Canada's queen in this game of chess. We don't need to expose our queen too early.
But they say all options for retaliation remain on the table. Countermeasures on over $150 billion worth of U.S. imports.
We need to be very clear with an American audience that Trump's tariff tax is going to make life more expensive for Americans.
The Prime Minister and Premiers also say they'll be there for Canadian workers whose sectors could be devastated if Trump imposes tariffs. He'll be inaugurated 5 days from now. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
All right, let's bring in Chief Political Correspondent Rosie Barton. So, Rosie, as we heard there, most of the
she looks like she's constantly on the verge of tears ever since Trudeau resigned. I love it. Oh, this is phenomenal.
premiers and Ottawa, of course, left on the same page. How much does that matter?
Yeah, Adrienne, at the beginning of the day, they weren't even planning to have a press conference together, the premiers and the prime minister. So this show of unity is really significant at this critical time for Canada. Premiers who don't agree with the federal government on much at all agreed on this common approach to keep all possible options on the table, to make sure they don't show their cards to Trump too soon, and to make sure that no one region or sector carries a bigger burden than another. So the fact that the Premier of Alberta is the only leader who doesn't agree with some of this approach, that's important, of course, and other premiers made it very clear they don't think it's particularly helpful. Doug Ford in particular said, listen, you have to protect your jurisdiction, but country ultimately comes first.
Yeah, but fuck Doug Ford. Seriously, I'm sorry for my language. I know that some people get offended when I swear, but seriously, at the end of the day, fuck Doug Ford. You are trying to start a trade war between Canada, a relatively small country in size and economic power, with America, the largest country in terms of economic power, who happens to be our neighbors. This is insane. We're not dealing with Joe Biden. We're not dealing with Obama. We're dealing with Trump. And Trump will try to hurt jobs, and he will even hurt his own people as collateral if he has to stick it to Canada if that's what needs to happen. I don't agree with it. I don't think we should be bending the knee at every single demand. I think that the demands have been pretty reasonable for our own good. Like, this is the crazy part. He's not asking for us to move mountains and drain oceans. He's asking for us to fix our own country. And then the premier's like, hey, whoa, now you focus on your own country, pal, or we're going to hurt you. That doesn't make any sense. We do have an immigration problem. We have a bunch, hundreds, if not thousands of terrorists have been let into Canada because of lack of screening. We have a drug problem. We have a crime problem. It's all right there. All he's saying is fix your shit or we're going to tax you because that's bleeding into America. I don't agree with us being taxed, but fixing these stuff should have been our priority from the get-go. And the only people to really blame is the federal government calling the shots, Justin Trudeau. And now we're going to take a look at Pierre Poilievre and what he has to say about Danielle Smith when he's asked by a reporter, because this is interesting. So far, there hasn't been any support for Danielle Smith other than Danielle Smith doing what she's doing. So will Pierre support her or will he not? Let's find out.
Your reaction to Danielle Smith's refusal to sign that joint agreement on the tariff retaliation plan by the premiers and the impact you think that will have on Canada's battle against the tariffs?
Yes, I mean, like I said, I think the first thing President Trump will do when he takes office is to send a bouquet of flowers to the Liberals of Freeland, Carney, and Trudeau, who have weakened and divided our country and given him the upper hand. The Liberals have forced Canadians to sell 100% of our oil and gas to the Americans at discount prices, which has put us in this position of weakness. It'd be nice if we had pipelines and export terminals that could take our energy to Asia and Europe without going through the United States. But of course, the economic radicals of Trudeau, Freeland, and Carney blocked those projects because of their radical ideology, and they have made us more and more dependent on President Trump. And my approach will be exactly the opposite. I will quickly approve energy projects to send our energy to the rest of the world without relying on Americans, and we will make our country more self-reliant and independent. I will also unite our country. The Liberals are trying to divide one province against another, Canadian against Canadian, right at our moment of maximum vulnerability. This is because we do not have a functional federal government. So we have effectively 10 different foreign affairs ministers, one from each province, trying to fight separately. If we had a carbon tax election now, we could elect a strong, stable, national majority government that would stand up for all Canadians, all industries, in all provinces, and that's what we need to do.
Okay, I mean, that was pretty decent. If America doesn't want to be part of trade with Canada, then of course we can't force them to, and Canada should be more self-sufficient and just rely on ourselves. One of the best parts of Canada is actually our energy sector, but I don't agree that we should be initiating some form of a trade war with America. I think that that's bad. I don't think that's going to end well. And I think that just focusing on growing ourselves and being more self-reliant is a good outlook, so long as it's not we're also going to try to attack America with some form of trade war or tariffs. That's my personal opinion, though, folks. I would absolutely love to know yours. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Pierre's response, about Danielle Smith going rogue. Is this good? Is this bad? Let me know your reasoning as to why. Of course, if you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in another one. Bye for now.